Hi, my name is Dave Reski, and welcome to this edition of In the Now, where we focus on uncovering myths and misunderstandings of marketing and leadership with some of the world's most interesting people. And my guest today is Michael Synk. He's a CEO coach in Nashville, Tennessee. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad that you think I'm a very interesting person. But let me correct you. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, Memphis.
I'm right next to the Mississippi River.
Yeah, well, I must be an ignorant Northeastern person here. So,
well, it's a pretty common confusion. So,
all right, we'll go with Tennessee. Memphis is a city I have never visited, so I would love to learn more about that at some time.
Well, I will be happy to guide you to the greatest haunts of Memphis when you visit. So look me up, please.
That sounds wonderful. Well, Michael's the author of two books, How to Create Customers as Loyal as Norm Peterson, which sounds like a great title, and Rock and Sand, A Practical Insight to Business Growth. And before dedicating his life to helping CEOs and executives, he held several leadership positions at top companies. Michael's been coaching mid-market owners and CEOs and their leadership teams for over 20 years using his Rock and Sand model. And I can tell this is going to be a really interesting conversation because we're going to start by tackling some fundamental issues, which I think will be a lot of fun to talk about. So, Michael, I like to start these conversations with asking you to smash a myth. And I just want you to talk about smashing a myth about, in your experience in coaching clients, why do customers buy, or why do they make the buying decisions they do?
Well, I'm not so sure it's a myth, but it seems to be a practice with the clients when I first work with the mid-market client or small client, that they spend a lot of time in their marketing approach and in their sales approach talking about how great they are or how good they are or how they're better than the competitors. And of course, all of that is very important. You have to be working on being better and different than your competitors. And it's a constant struggle, and you should always be working on that. But customers don't buy from you because you're better. There's an appropriate time to tell them when they're better, but they're not buying because you're better at what you do. They're buying because they have a deeper problem that what you do solves. It's not the obvious thing. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So it kind of makes me wonder if at certain phases of the buying process, buyers kind of go through this evolution where at some point they're comparing you to competitors, and at some point they're thinking about their core needs. But is that true in your experience, or do you think they're always focused on their core needs and just trying to compare you to their core needs? And that's why they're making the buying decision they are.
I think customers by default end up immediately trying to compare you to others, and they get confused by that because often there's not much difference. All the clients or all the sellers are saying the same thing, which is I'm better. Now, how they're better might be different, but they're all saying I'm better than the other guy. So in kind of the sales process, or what I would prefer to call the buying process, a customer is trying to make a decision. And this works in the B2B world, definitely. And it certainly relates in the B2C world, consumer products. The customer has to decide it's worth spending their time with you. And to talk about how much better you are doesn't help them decide that it's worth their time. So the first thing you've got to do is say things and talk about things that catch their attention, that say, this guy can solve my problem. This guy understands me. So what needs to happen is to and what I do with my clients, one of the first things I do in a strategic planning retreat, and it's kind of core to strategy, is let's look at your core customers. Write them down on the flip chart, one flip chart page per client. It's not the company, it's a person. Who's the person at the company? What is he responsible for? And what is he responsible for that's not buying from you? Okay, he is responsible for buying from you, but what else is on his plate? And then proceed through a series of questions like, so what is his life like at work? Where is the pressure coming from at work? Who's kicking his butt if his job is not going well? What other pressures does he have in life? How fast is his work pace? How difficult are the things? Does he have the expertise to be able to do this? Now, you ask those questions. What the interesting thing is my clients, even the new ones, they know this about their clients, but they're not looking at this. They're looking at purely demographics. They're this big, they can spend this much money, and they have this specific problem that I'm good at solving. The specific technical problem, the obvious problem, top of mind problem. And they don't look at what they know about the clients. Now, when you put about between 5 to 10 of them on a wall, and these are your core customers. So let me step back. A core customer is someone that loves you. You love them. They're not buying about price. You got to be in the ballpark, but price is not going to be the issue. They pay on time, and they're likely to tell someone else. Okay, so that's the type of customer we're up there. The ones we really love, they love us. Now you get about 5 to 10 of them up there, a pattern emerges. And that's why they're buying. The pattern that emerges. They're in over their head on this technical issue. They don't have the resources. Things are moving super fast, and they've got more important things to do than this thing. That's what you got to get to, and that's what you need to build your brand promise around.
Yeah, super fascinating. I think you said a lot there. I just want to unpack a couple of those ideas.
Sure.
Because I'm sure you get into this with your clients all the time. So you talked about like this, the buyer wants to feel understood. They want to say, hey, this vendor, this product, they understand me. They kind of get it.
He gets me.
You also kind of said that they want their core needs met. In your experience, is it more important for them to feel understood and connected, or is it more important for them to feel like you're meeting their core needs? Or is it not an either or both? But which is more important?
It's not an either or. It's more one leads to the other.
Interesting. Say more about that.
The customer understands by looking at your website or listening to your voice message or the email you write. If the customer says, or the prospect says, oh, he understands me, they are more likely to talk to you about their core problem. So the buying process is the customer decides to meet with you and talk about his problem. So you've got them on the calendar. That's first base. Second base is you've questioned them and had dialogue with them so that you understand what their problem is and agree that you might be a potential solution. That's second base. Third base is you've had enough dialogue to understand that you understand and they understand what a good decision is, which may or may not involve you, but you want them to make a good decision. And then you get to propose. And people kind of speed through those bases, and it's kind of a baseball analogy. If you try to go to first to third without stopping at second, what happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
I made that mistake for years.
Yeah.
Myself.
As you're working with clients through this process, you're probably working with senior management, you're working with like senior marketing, you're working with senior sales. Do you find that the salespeople kind of get it more intuitively because they're working with customers all day long? Or do you find that marketing kind of gets it faster because they're used to this conceptual thinking? I don't know. Or is it always different depending on
You know, it's different based on the backgrounds of the people doing those things.
Mhm.
You know, marketing sets up sales. So marketing sets up that first conversation. Anything. So sometimes cold calling is, in my mind, is marketing.
Mhm.
Salespeople would say cold calling is sales. But no, it's getting sales starts when you have that meeting where they talk to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
And comfortable with you. So there's a lot of work on that. So it's not one or the other. It's one leads to the next one. And they get it when you spend a little time talking about it. They go, oh wow. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. It's what
Yeah.
they're trying to decide that's important, not what I'm trying to tell them.
Yeah.
It's not a pitch game.
Right.
So bringing this back to this pattern, something will jump out and say, that's what you need to talk about. That you need to come up with a brand promise that says, I understand you, and you're going to get this from me, and that's going to help you solve your problem.
Yeah.
Not saying, this is our value proposition. You're going to get more with us than the other guy, or it's going to be a lower price in the same thing, or we're faster, or we're better. It's just this, somehow you identify the problem. So they say, oh, yeah, I'm going to take his phone call.
Yeah.
I'm going to return his call. That email, yeah, I'm going to send him an email back and say, put me on your calendar.
It sounds like a really simple thing, but I'm sure it's very difficult because you're kind of breaking through layers of past history and what they do. And, I know that you've written a book on the rock and sand model and put together this concept of the rock and sand model. Can you talk about that and the role of your model and how it fits into this whole strategy discussion?
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's great.
So here's the, there. So here's a picture that will help you work through the rock and sand model. So this is a picture of your company.
Oh, you may be sharing the wrong screen. So,
okay. Let me get this correct. I'm always really bad at these things.
that's all right.
There we go. How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. So this is a picture of your company. Okay. It's a hole in the ground. It's a weird picture. And right now you're right here. And where you want to be is here, the future, the top of the hole. And as a company, you're pushing sand every day. Now, sand would be defined as all the transactional things, or all the things that set up the transactions that allow you to invoice your company and collect money. So sales calls, service provided, all that work. In most companies, by the time they work with me, they're good at pushing the sand, because if they weren't, they'd be out of business. And this is the primary focus. You got to push a lot of sand. And as you push the sand, it goes into the hole and you get closer to the top. But I find that a lot of companies, that's all they're focused on. And their strategy is, we just got to do more. So we're going to work harder and run faster and jump higher. And we're going to push more sand. Now, in addition to sand, there are rocks. Now, a rock is loosely defined as a project, an initiative, an effort by a group of people within your company to change something or improve something so that pushing sand is easier. So it's not just a multiple of adding more people. Okay, so it could be putting in a software program. It could be opening an office in a new area. It could be for adding a product line. It could be a lot of things. But the team has to work on one of those rocks and push it in the hole. And mechanically, or what happens really is, you push the rock in the hole, with relatively the same amount of effort, growth is larger. You get somewhat of a multiplier effect. Never exactly sure what it is. So the question becomes, so are you pushing sand or moving rocks?
Hmm.
And the answer is, I need to do both. Do you have rocks? And that's the aha moment, usually with the leadership team, is like, we're really good over here with the sand, but we don't have any rocks. How are we going to figure out the rocks? And the rest of the model is about how do you get to that? I'm just going to go one picture further. This core customer brand promise, they're related to each other. You've got to come up with a core customer. You've got to understand them and why they're buying, and then develop a promise that sets you apart as different, not better. So I'm going to pull this down.
Fascinating. I mean, it's a powerful concept. As you get into these discussions with CEOs and senior management teams, what kind of moves them from a model where they're doing great with the sand, the business is going good? How do they get to the point where they even want to start tackling some of these strategy issues that may be lying under the surface? What has to happen there to start to
they're
engage?
usually getting frustrated because the effort of pushing more and more sand takes more and more of their time, and it gets harder and harder and harder. And the same things they're doing are harder to do. It gets more difficult. It's kind of like what got you here will not get you where you want to be down the road.
Mhm.
Something's got to change. I don't know what that is, but my God, I'm going crazy pushing sand. My life is becoming miserable, or the leadership team is incredibly frustrated. We got to change something. So how are we going to do that?
Mhm.
That's when this model, all of a sudden, hey, we got to get over here with the rocks. And what are the rocks? And we need a process to figure out what the rocks, because we don't know what they are. And quite frankly, my picture showed there were 3 rocks. Well, you know, there's 100 out there that they could do. Which ones fit right? And a core to that is understanding first your core customer, and then what's the brand promise. And I have kind of a story to tell you if we have time.
Sure.
That kind of illustrates this thing. I learned this about 15, 16 years ago. And it's a silly little analogy, but you and I know analogies are what get things across. So I worked with this company. It was a doggy daycare center 15, 16 years ago. And I'm going to qualify myself. I am not a dog person. I don't understand why I got introduced to them, but it seemed like a nice thing to figure out. The owner was not happy with what his marketing firm was telling him he should do. They were telling him to market him as, we've got better stuff than the other kennels. Okay. And he did have better stuff. And, you know, kind of marketing it as if it was a day spa that your wife might go to.
Mhm.
And he just like, you know, that's just not me. That's not working. So I sat down and says, do you have a list of all your customers? So go to that list, and what are the 20% that are doing 80% of your business? Do you have that list? He put it in the spreadsheet. And what was funny is that he had them listed by the name of the dog first. Of course, he's in the dog business. You got to know the names of the dog. So I'm learning. And I said, so who are the people? And then we just column by column on the spreadsheet. So what do these people do? What do you know about the people? And timing wise, what is their life like? And we came up with a core customer description that these 20 that were doing 80% of the business were all couples with no kids for different reasons. So empty nesters, gay and lesbian couples, couples that aren't able to have kids, couples who don't want to have kids. The other thing that was obvious, they were all involved in travel for different reasons, but they had to leave their dog for a long time. And they felt guilty about it. guilt was why they were going to buy from them, that their precious baby, their dog, who is a person, and this, I learned a lot about dogs at this time. It's like, I didn't know that people treated dogs like people. And he says, they're guilty about their dog. Their dog is being ignored and they're feeling bad about it. How do we solve that problem? So what's your brand promise? He says, well, my God, our brand promise is their dog is a member of our family too.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, these customers understood this daycare, doggy daycare center. This is what they do. And then all of the features and benefits that made them better all of a sudden made more sense. So that they didn't have cages at this doggy daycare center. They had little rooms with a camera in them so you could watch your dog. And I thought this was silly as could be. They had TVs in the room. And I'm like, why would you put a TV screen in for a dog? But they did this, and it showed the Disney doggy movies on a rotation. And they had the opportunity, they had cameras in the pen areas when the kids went out to play, the dogs went out to play. You see, I'm calling them kids. So you could watch your dog play. And they had on their website the opportunity to order special treats for your dogs or extra play sessions. So they said, you know, we're treating you like family. Why don't you take a look at the website, and when you're having that stressful break, watch your dog. And these people were logging in to watch their dog take a nap or get a treat or get a special nail treatment or have an extra play session. And their guilt is relieved. Their dog's okay. They're not feeling so bad about being out of town. And guess what? That promise worked with everyone else too, not just the core. And the end of the story is about 15 years later, he took the original one, kept it going. He built a second one, which is the Taj Mahal of doggy daycare centers. And there is a private equity group doing a roll-up of doggy daycares, and he sold this thing for more money than you and I would ever think is possible.
Wow, fascinating.
That kind of like, understand who this core is and what is their problem. The core is not that they want the dog needs all these things. The core is we're guilty about ignoring our dog. That's their problem. Oh, that's, you know, so he built everything around that. And I'm not a marketing guy when you get right down to it. I didn't know how he started communicating this to people and whatever. But when you figure that out, boy, the marketing people know what to do.
Yeah.
The sales people know what to say. And which is basically ask questions.
Yeah,
You know.
it's very powerful, and you did an amazing job kind of helping kind of come up with that brand essence and where that's going. We just have a few minutes left, but just talk about like who's your ideal client? Who are you trying to serve? Like who do you like to work with?
What I like to work with is that owner or CEO, that mid-market, which I would say 5 million to 100 million, although I've worked with outside that range. But that's the person. And the person, the CEO and his team has realized it's getting harder and harder to succeed the same way they're doing things.
Hmm.
They know they have to learn a new way to do something, and they want to learn it quickly. They are learners, but they're not necessarily readers. And so that's the ideal client. I got to make a change. That leads to, let's get a strategy figured out. We've got to learn what's different. We've got to learn what 3 years looks like, and then what has to be different to get there, because you're not going to do it the same way. If they're really autocratic, doesn't work well with me, or this process doesn't work, because strategy is a team sport. You do better strategy when everyone on the team is involved in creating it, not top down. And I don't know, is that kind of telling you who I'm looking for or who I'm do best with?
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, you've got some amazing experience, deep strategic thinking, a book, a great model to help people with. You can make a big difference, and you have made a big difference in many companies. If people want to reach out to you and kind of connect with you and learn more about your services, how would they do that?
Well, go to the website, www.rock-sand.com, or go to the same thing, school rock N sand.com. I have an online school where all of this is taught for, and that will work for the more the CEO who's more of the do-it-yourselfer or smaller that doesn't have the resources but still wants to learn it. And so there's full coaching, there's do it entirely yourself through the school, there's a hybrid model where you'll learn the content through the school and then you'll coach with me to make sure you got it right.
Yeah.
So those are the options. Go there. Somewhere on that site, there's a button that says, make a consultation with Mike. It gets me on the calendar and we talk. And if it works, we find out what worked, that might work. We figure out a way that fits your situation. And if it doesn't work, hey, I got to know you and we'll be friends. And I'll hopefully try to get you to someone who can help you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, there's a fascinating conversation. You've clearly got a lot to offer. I can sense that this is just one of many topics that you could take me through and help our listeners with this. So will probably ask you to be on the show again to talk about some other things. But
the thing is, strategic planning guys, they get the strategy down and then the company starts executing the strategy, and then they find out these other things that are getting in the way of strategy, which is we don't know how to lead. Oh, we're really bad at improving our talent. We really don't know understand our customers, cash flow, teamwork, even systems thinking. All these things start popping up.
Yeah.
And as a coach, not a consultant, it's like, let's learn the principles that are in play here and let's figure out how it's going to work here.
Yeah. Well, you clearly have a lot to offer. Thanks for spending some time today and sharing some ideas, and really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. It's been fun. And come to Memphis and we'll go to the rendezvous and get some ribs.
I can't wait. We'll do it. All right. Thanks, Michael. Take care.